Where did this game come from? Talking Annoying Orange is a mobile game developed by a company called Gigabyte Solutions. Most people don't even know this game exists, and there's a good reason for that. The game is heavily based on Talking Tom, that virtual pet game where a cat repeats everything you say, but with a bizarre twist. Instead of a cat, you have this thing, the notoriously obnoxious Annoying Orange from that old YouTube series. To provide a bit of context, this orange is essentially a character created solely to be irritating, so the idea of turning it into an interactive Talking Tom style game is pretty bizarre when you think about it. For years, the only way people even knew this game existed was because a YouTuber named CrazyAVCX uploaded a video showing full gameplay. It was practically the only proof that Talking Annoying Orange had actually existed at some point. Beyond that video, there was almost zero information about the title online. However, a while ago, 2 prototype beta versions of the game were uncovered. These versions differed from the one shown in CrazyAVCX's video, but they clearly originated from the same developer. It seemed these prototypes had been lost for years, tucked away in some corner of the internet that nobody had properly checked. But that didn't last long. What happened next was that after information about these prototypes surfaced, people started searching everywhere to see if there was anything else left from the game or the developer. After months of finding nothing new, something completely unexpected happened. One of the viewers decided to simply search for the game on the App Store, and suddenly, there it was. The game had reappeared under the name Talking Orange. And to everyone's surprise, the developer was once again Gigabyte Solutions. This was definitely not what people expected. What most likely happened is that the developers had stopped paying their Apple developer account fees, causing their entire app catalog to be wiped from the App Store. But recently, they must have decided to renew their subscription, and when they did, all of their old apps automatically resurfaced on the platform. Not a single word has been heard from these developers regarding why they chose to reactivate their account or what motivated them to do so. Is it possible they wanted to monetize those apps again, or did they just feel it was time to review them? But there's a catch. The game was renamed from Talking Annoying Orange to simply Talking Orange, likely to avoid legal trouble with the company behind the Annoying Orange brand. It's a calculated move that suggests the developer is fully aware that the game probably infringes on copyright laws. The fascinating part of this case is that the game basically found itself without anyone having to make an extraordinary effort to recover it. From one moment to the next, it just came back. And truth be told, even though this game was lost, it isn't necessarily disturbing on its own, but anything involving that orange has always crept me out for some reason. So to me, it counts as disturbing. Hotel 626 and Asylum 626 are highly peculiar cases. These were point-and-click adventure games released during Halloween of 2008. They were developed and published by a company called Snackstrong Productions, which wasn't actually a real studio. It was a fictional brand created by Doritos as part of an alternate reality marketing campaign to promote the return of 2 legacy chip flavors, Black Pepper, Jack, and Cheddar BBQ. The concept of a chip brand establishing its own studio to produce games is quite unusual, but corporate marketing campaigns were far more creative back then. What made these games truly unique was the website hosting Hotel 626. The site featured a very specific mechanic. It only allowed you to play between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. If you attempted to access the site during the day, it would simply tell you to return at 6 p.m. It's as if Doritos wanted to forge an exclusive experience that could only unfold in the dark. A horror game you could only experience at night. A restriction that made it feel more special and significantly more unsettling. The game itself plays like a live-action visual novel, suggesting Doritos poured a substantial budget into its production. The graphics and presentation were top tier for a promotional campaign. But what happened at the very end of the game? If you managed to survive to the end and lived in the United States, the game would prompt you to enter your phone number. If you did, you would receive an actual, incredibly eerie phone call. A voice on the other end would say, "If you want to get out of here alive, do exactly what I tell you. There isn't much time. Quick, go down the hall." Imagine being a kid playing this game at 3 o'clock in the morning, surviving all the horror sequences, and then suddenly your real phone rings with someone seemingly threatening you. That was the full experience Doritos designed. Frankly, the actual connection between chip flavors and the terrifying content of the game was never clear. It literally had nothing to do with it. But that's part of what makes it so bizarre. Now, years later, these games are practically inaccessible. The Hotel 626 website no longer exists in its original form, and very few people got to experience it in its prime. All that remains of these games are YouTube recordings from players back in the day. It's a shame major corporations no longer take creative and risky leaps like this. Castle Cat, to contrast, is a much more degrading case. This was a series of flash games that appeared completely harmless on the surface, the type of game anyone could play without a second thought, but hidden within this series was something deeply unsettling that nobody anticipated. You see, these games aren't entirely lost. It's still possible to access parts of them. However, one specific aspect is lost, and beyond that, it's completely shocking. In the third installment of the series, when your character died and triggered the game over screen, instead of a standard animation or a simple text message, a real-life photograph would appear. It showed a black trash bag, and attached to that bag was a note that simply read, "Dead cat." If you thought that was bad, the fourth game in the series was even worse. In that title, the game over screen simply displayed an actual, unedited photo of a dead cat. No censorship, no filters, just the direct image. There is no way of knowing why the developer decided to include this. Was it an attempt to make the game feel more mature, or was it just an incredibly irresponsible decision? It was likely made by a teenager or someone with zero regard for how it might affect players, especially young children. Imagine being an 8 or 9-year-old kid playing this perfectly normal looking, safe game, and suddenly you lose a life only to see a real dead cat flash onto your screen. That's the kind of imagery that can scar a person. Over the years, these specific prototypes containing the disturbing screens have been lost. They might still exist somewhere out there, buried deep in old internet archives, but the standard version distributed widely was censored, and those images were replaced with something more appropriate. Samara and Samar is another highly complex case because, to begin with, it doesn't actually exist as a playable game. Okay, first of all, I want to clear something up because I notice a lot of people getting confused. This game, much like Lisa's secret boyfriend, are not real, tangible games. Instead, they are game concepts that could have existed, generally referred to as lazy games, since they are inspired by Lazy Wardrobe, which was exactly that. In this instance, these two conceptual games were created by Sergi69, a YouTube content creator who specializes in documenting and building narratives around lost flash games and digital horror concepts. Sergi69 and other creators adapted the concept of, well, in short, it's not a real game, but the premise remains incredibly fascinating. The premise of the game is relatively straightforward. You follow the story of two childhood friends going on their very first date together. The player must help one of the protagonists, Summer, get ready for this milestone by choosing her makeup, hairstyle, clothing, and accessories so she looks perfect. It was precisely the kind of dress-up minigame that flooded thousands of flash game portals at the time. Completely wholesome and childish. The game opens with a simple text prompt. Today, Summer has big plans. Yesterday, Samara asked her out. It will be their first date. Summer wants to look perfect for the occasion. Can you help her get ready for this big moment? From there, the minigames would commence. First came the makeup, applying eyeshadow, putting on false eyelashes, adding contact lenses, and styling her hair. Next, you selected her outfit and accessories. Once finished, you hit the play button, transitioning to a scene where Summer texts Samara, "I'm ready, I'll be there soon." Samara replies, "Sorry, I think I'm going to be late. Something happened." "Are you okay?" "I'm not okay. Don't worry. I don't know. I'm sorry." It felt odd, but nothing too alarming. Just a date experiencing a minor delay. When you hit play again, the scene shifted to reveal Summer replying, but this time she was visibly heartbroken, with tears streaming down her face. Summer decides to walk to the park for their date anyway. You had to guide her by clicking on the screen. She wanted to walk, not run. You monitored her location on a map as she made her way calmly through the streets toward the park. But then, a second marker materialized on the map, represented by a black bubble that stalked her until Summer reached the park. Who was that black bubble tracking Summer? The next minigame revealed it in a painfully direct way. Summer is terrified. The on-screen text read, "She's calling me for help, please!" The phone numbers on the screen were scrambled, forcing you to input the correct sequence to dial emergency services. But here was the catch. If you failed all 3 attempts, you couldn't complete the emergency call. Instead, it displayed Samara's phone screen with a black box that gradually unveined as you read the text conversation between the two friends. Samara typed, "Hey, I'm here. Where are you? Hey Summer, are you mad at me? I'm sorry." Right after, a message flashed on screen. Samara never showed up. Try again. Then, a cinematic played, unveiling what had actually transpired. Samara was sitting on a park bench waiting for Summer when she suddenly heard her date's phone ringing. The screen faded to black, and you could hear Samara saying, "There you are. What are you doing lying in the mud? Come, lie down with me. You want me to lie in the mud? Look, I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. Are you still mad at me?" During the loading screen for the next minigame, Samara's internal thoughts were displayed. Something horrific had taken place, and Samara was carrying crushing guilt. Then, the next phase began, a spot the difference game. You had to click on the discrepancies between images. You were shown 4 pictures that fleshed out the history of these 2 girls, with messages underneath each one expressing what you were looking at. The first image showed a childhood photo where Samara appeared to be comforting Summer. "Remember the first time we met? It was the first day of kindergarten. Nobody wanted to be my friend except you. You made me a friendship bracelet to cheer me up. I spent the whole day begging my mom to let you stay over. When she did, we stayed up all night. It was so much fun. Remember the first time we held hands? I was upset, and you didn't know how to comfort me, so you just took my hand, and that made me feel so much better. Remember the first time I asked you out? I was so surprised. I had always liked you, but I never guessed that you liked me back." But then, seconds later, a 5th image surfaced, asking, "Remember the last time we saw each other?" In it, you could see Summer being strangled. The game then displayed a clock pointing to 12 o'clock. You had to move the clock hands to solve a puzzle. As you did, a door would open and close, and the lighting on both of their faces shifted, simulating the passage of time. Upon completion, you entered a room where you found a young Summer playing with a toy car. The game stated, "Let's go!" You picked up the friendship bracelet and a door swung open. On the floor lay a clock and Summer's cell phone. The clock was tapped at 9:38 while the phone read 3:13. Once you synchronized them, the door unlocked. In the next room, which was predominantly green and decorated, you saw Summer's body resting in a casket. You had to light a candle. After that, you entered another room, mostly blue, featuring a circle that resembled a water well. Samara was there weeping, simply saying, "I'm sorry." You handed over the friendship bracelet, and Samara continued, "Even though I miss you and wish you were still here, I'm glad I had the chance to be with you." The door opened one last time, revealing a final scene where Samara stood in a graveyard, placing flowers at Summer's grave, watching over her from the shadows. The overarching plot is clear. 2 girls who were friends since childhood saw their friendship blossom into romance. Samara asked Summer out. Summer agreed, but as Summer was arriving at the park for their first date, she was stalked by someone, murdered, strangled, and left in the park's mud. Samara arrived hours later, expecting to find Summer waiting for her. The game encapsulates grief, guilt, and Samara's profound trauma, her crushing guilt over failing to save her. The way she keeps Summer's memory alive by revisiting every milestone they shared brings a touch of dread, but more than anything, it leaves you with deep sadness. It makes you feel exactly what Samara feels: loss, regret, even long after they are gone.